What's up, everybody? How's it going? My name is Ryan Cook. Welcome to this new video. So, have you ever carved a raven inside of a log or made a bar table out of a half shell log? That's what we're gonna do in this video. It's gonna be long form. I'm gonna talk throughout it. We're gonna see how it goes. I'm gonna tell you the tools I use and kind of the techniques that I'm doing as I'm doing it. So buckle up, let's go. So here's the deal. I'm gonna walk around my house, clean up my house. You're gonna hear that stuff in the background, but it's the only way I'm gonna be able to get everything done. What I'm doing right now is I'm gonna size up. I'm putting away the bagels. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I am, but what I'm doing is I'm just sizing up the log, because when you're doing it, you wanna make a real nice flat surface. We're gonna do a raven inside a log. Those are the dogs barking, if you hear them in the background. Life happens. This is the way it's gonna go down. I put it up on that jack. It's a scissor table jack. You get it from Princess Auto. They're 200 and something bucks. They're pretty good, but actually the thing's kind of been shit in the bed, so I don't know if it's that great, but when it works, it's good. Then I put some plywood over top, glue it, Gorilla Glue it down. I'm going to shape out the bird. You know, if you do a good drawing and you cut to the lines, like I've said, cut true to your lines, it's gonna work great. You got yourself a punch out, and then you're just recessing it back, because it is a relief carving. That's what we're doing this whole time. We're gonna relief carve into the log, kind of like the owl in a logs, bear in a log, but you're thinking 2D, 3D perspective. Because the most important part is the side profile. That's all you're really doing. So I'll start to work that circle out. I do it in kind of like a half shell or like something with a nice line. You want it to flow. Visually, I always look to make sure that the piece doesn't have jagged lines. You know, like people look for jagged lines, and if they see that, they're not gonna wanna buy it. You know, so when you're trying to create something like that, make it symmetrical. You know, give it some style if you want, especially with spirit faces. Thinking S's, thinking snakes, thinking lines that flow together. But for this exact piece, we're just doing a half shell, because that's the easiest way to get it done, and probably the fastest. And once you have that kind of pushed back to your depth that you want, then you can kind of create the bird and follow the lines that you've already drawn on. And you can do this with eagles, bears, owls, dolphins, whatever you want, it doesn't matter. Spirit faces. It's all about you just finding what's gonna work for you. But we're doing a raven. So they got long legs. They got really cool feather pattern. That's why I enjoy doing it. And their beaks are straight. Little tip at the end, little bit of a, you know, drop at the end. But you can do them stylized, you know. You can make them very charactery. You can do anything you want. So what I'm gonna start doing is getting rid of the sapwood. I've created some lines to where I know where the head is, to where the skull is, and now to where, like, I've created depth. So now you can see right now I'm taking away all that sapwood. And right now I'm using a 501P, an Echo 501P with, I think, 12-inch bar, 12-inch dime tip cannon bar. I believe that's what I'm using. Let me see. Yep. Echo 501P with a 12-inch cannon dime tip bar. So now I'm getting rid of the sapwood. I've already punched out my lines, and there you can see it. Because I've already gone to the depth that I'm gonna go to, ideally, but or at least when I remove the sapwood, I can still see exactly what I'm doing. Obviously, I like to listen to tunes, so that's just me. And then I'm finding my line. So now I'm going, okay, the body's gonna change direction. So when you're looking at pictures, there are certain spots where your body is going to change directionally. So I know that that wing to the body is where that direction change is gonna be. So that's where I'm gonna start to go, okay, that's where the chest goes into the right leg. The right leg's gonna be further out, and the right wing will be the furthest out of the piece. So I'm gonna mold it back. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but at that same time, that's kind of what you want to do. So now you can see that I've got pretty much all the sapwood gone. The body is shaped out. And then obviously you're just gonna start to kind of set in the wing and set in your other parts of the body. I'm sure that's what I'm gonna start to do because I'm right at that spot. Yeah, just because I know what I'm gonna do, that's what it is. I haven't even watched this. But I'm thinking legs, I'm thinking where that little negative space is gonna go. So I'm gonna go, okay, I know that the raven and the crows have very big gaps underneath their legs, and it looks good if you're able to create that in a 3D raven. You create negative space, it looks awesome. Sorry about the dogs. And I'm pushing back on both angles because that's the whole thing that's going to be this piece is you're playing with like a two-dimensional kind of look, and then you got to look for the lines of the directional chains, like look for planes. I'm doing dishes right now, sorry guys. It is what it is. It's the only way I got time to try this out. I'm not gonna sit there for a half an hour and dictate a video. Maybe if this video goes viral, then I will, but if not, whatever. Nothing goes viral on my page. All right, so we've got rid of all the sapwood. Doesn't really truly matter, but I just like to get rid of it because the sapwood's gonna be the first part to rot. And that's gonna be the first part to rot on any wood. If you carve whatever wood you're carving, it doesn't really matter, you know? It's the part of the tree where the tree is growing and the water's traveling up and down in it, and that's the part that rots first. But since we're gonna be spray painting this thing black, it does not really matter. And that's what I do for all of the ravens that I do. I think you can burn them, you can get away with that, then put in stain. Or you can do this other technique that Jake Rhodes showed me that I'm gonna do some videos on with hopefully the help of him. And introduce you guys to Jake and his YouTube page. I think it's Northern Roads something. He does some cool time-lapse videos, but I think he's thinking about getting into some instructional stuff also. Great dude, very, very good carver. So now you see that I'm starting to use the tip of my bar. If you really look, you can see I'm using the tip of my bar. And this is the one thing I always say to carvers, especially if you're a new carver. You want to get to know the tips of your bar and the way the changes go on either side. So like if you're furring or if you're doing anything, you want your saw is your pencil. You can shape with it. That's what the majority of my carving is becoming, is I block it out, I punch it out, and then I use the tip of my bar to kind of get exactly what I need, like the textures or the shaping or recessing or cleaning things up. You can do a lot of stuff with chainsaw, right? And that's what it's called. It's called chainsaw carving, power carving. If you want to do Dremel carving, you want to do that other stuff, that's amazing, and we'll do some videos on that. But get to know your saw. That's the most important thing. And then, okay, so now we're going into kind of like cleaning up the back of it, right? So when I'm cleaning up the back, now you can see it looks like it's got more depth. I've pushed it back, I've gone behind the head slightly. And one thing to think about before you get going on this, when you get going on this, is you'll notice that I don't ever go past the point of like if you're looking at it visually, when you go behind it, behind the body, you're committed for the rest of the time. So I will push until I'm completely happy where the front portion is, because that's gonna be the main part. The back part all becomes washed out in the end, and you don't need to completely worry about it. So don't cut away the beak just because you think it's there. Wait till it's there. Wait till you have everything where you want it. And then you can start to cut behind the sculpture. And then that's gonna create a lot of depth. And that's gonna give it like a much, much better perspective. So here's a good example of getting to know the tip of your bar. You can see that I'm shaping and pulling with the chain on the left side, so the left side of the tooth is gonna do the cutting. Same with on the right side. it works for different ways of furring. If you're carving on the right side and you're doing, say, like a bear on the left, you can use the right side of the tip and you're gonna get a consistent finish to it. And you can see I switched it over underneath the wing to use the outside of it. So really get to know the tip of your chain, get to know the tip of your bar, and practice it up. You use the top left side and the top right side, it's gonna pull differently, it's gonna texture differently. You can use it at different angles. The great thing about having a Cannon dime tip 12-inch bar or any carving bar, there's no kickback. So really get to know that and enjoy learning it. I mean, that's one thing about carving. It's not just block out and blah blah blah, and it's shaping. Shape out your piece. So we're moving into the feather pattern. You can see that I'm just using the tip of my bar and I'm just using the teeth just a little bit to kind of set in the feathers. And the way I like to do it is I like to kind of set my depths and then run the tip of the chain. No crazy jagged things, just kind of use the tip, pushing it through, not going too deep, because if you go too deep, then it's just gonna look a little bit, they don't lay on top of each other. Feathers lay on top of each other, right? But if you want that effect and the way you want that look, you can do that. And I've done that before and it looks cool in certain things. But for this piece, we're not doing that. But that's not to say you can't do it, or if you want to try it and you're watching it at home and you want to give it a shot, go for it, man. There's nothing wrong with trying, because you never know what you're gonna get unless you try it, right? But if this is your first one and you're worried about it and you're kind of like, oh shit, keep it safe. Try to follow along. But if not, you've done this a few times, you want to start exploring, that's the best thing you can do. So you can see I'm using that tip, the top of my tip, just like we talked about, to kind of set in my feathers. And then once I've got them lined up, we'll come back in a little bit, we'll burn it, we'll grind it. You use an angle grinder, you can shape them out, you could use a finger sander, so many different ways to kind of get it so it's a nice round feather that's gonna look good when you're done. But for now, this is the actual kind of time, and that's the way it is. So I've kind of set in the feathers now, and what am I doing here? Looks like I'm pulling, yeah, I'm pulling it with the bottom right of my tooth to kind of give it a little bit of texture. So like I'm changing the texture in the neck to the feather pattern. So there's a directional change. So you can see that it's not just one kind of direction. I like to make sure that there's different kind of feels throughout the piece. Even though these feathers may not look that way, it kind of gives it a nice little effect, just because visually it will look good in the end. And now you can see I'm going way back. I'm trying to push out as much as I can to give it as much depth as I can. I've got the leg where I know it's gonna live forever. And now, sorry, I'm mopping now. Now I'm trying to make it so it all looks balanced. So you can see I just am going over the piece with the tip of my bar. I'm kind of sanding. I like to kind of sand and shape as I go. Like I'm constantly evolving. When I first started carving, it would all be about the punch out and, trying to get this block form, not do as much whittling as I do. But as I've become who I've become and the way I've found my style, is I've just taken from everybody. So when you watch my video and you watch other people's videos and you watch other carvers and you do it yourself, you're gonna just take little bits from everyone. That's the kind of great thing about carving is, yes, you can follow my style, you can learn from me, and you can do this, but at that same time, find you. you know, you're the artist, and that's what it's all about. You can't just look at my work and think that I know what I'm doing, because I've looked at everybody. I watch all the carvers. I never comment on anything, but I'm keeping up with who's doing what. Some days I'll do a day where I'm like, oh, I saw this great idea that Brandon Kroon from Australia did with this texture he's done, or Kadama and the way he does his textures, or blockouts, or burning, or sanding, anything, you know, like you look at the pictures and you try to figure out what they did to accomplish their goal. So do that. That's the thing about carving. There's no right or wrong, and you can only learn and get better by trying it yourself, looking at other people, watching other videos, doing other things, and trying other things. Don't be scared to try pumpkin carving, or, you know, clay, or watching other videos. Like doing different mediums also really helps. So we've switched, moving on that little rant, moving on to the 2511, the CS 2511. I'm running quarter pitch chain with a 8-inch Canon dime tip bar. Now that to me is my go-to for textures. You can see that I've taken away the chain break. Echo doesn't like that, but I personally just find that the chain break for me gets in the way sometimes, so on some of those saws I've removed it. I keep my idle down so the chain doesn't keep going afterwards. But you know what? That's not something I recommend. It's something I do. And, you know, so when you see it, you can understand why it doesn't have that. I personally find that for me, it works better for what I'm trying to accomplish when I'm trying to get into tight spaces. But do that at your own risk. I do not condone it. I don't think it's a good idea. If you're new to carving, keep everything as safe as possible. Make sure you're wearing all your safety gear. But once you start to find you and you find what works, you do what works for you. That's the way carving is. And by all means, like, everything you do it at your own risk, you know? Just try to be as safe as you can. Have fun, but be as safe as you can. So, another rant. I guess that's what these are gonna be. But hopefully you're enjoying this and you're still with me. So you can see now I'm kind of working on the head. The head now to me is gonna be the major selling point. You know, ravens have that little beak, and that was an interesting little clip there. The beak is gonna be the selling point in the raven. Like I was saying, they have a little dip in the front of the beak, but it's that little fur from the side of the beak that's gonna be the seller. I'm gonna zoom in so you can watch this. So I'm using the Makita finger sander, the battery one. I use the most grit that I can get. I think it's 40. I actually use the Makita ones. I know that people cut their own, they make their own, but I found I've done that. They just burn up too quick because you're cutting them with a bandsaw or with something else, and it just doesn't work as good. So the finger sander with the battery has been the best thing that's happened to those Makita finger sanders, because the cord's out of the way and it goes for quite a long time, and it's a really nice way to kind of shape. I personally love it. Don't think twice about using anything else. You could use a saber-tooth burrs, you could use Arbortech, you could use anything that you can think of to accomplish what you need to do. But for me, I love the finger sander. I always have, I always will, and some people love it, some people don't. You can see right now, okay, so I'm pushing in on that eyeball, because you gotta think, like, the bird looks forward, right? And the eye is in front of, like, to the beak. So the beak has to be, it's basically like a nose, right? You know, your beak is the nose, your eye has to be out a bit, and that's the way I kind of always try to do the birds, especially predator birds, because they're looking forward. You know, a deer looks to the side and has like a front view, but at that same time with predators, they are looking forward. And right now I'm using the new Whisper eyeball bit, 1/2 inch from Sabretooth. This thing that just came out, the Whispers, I'm gonna do a video on them soon. They're awesome. I'm gonna have them on my website, sawvalleytools.com, sawvalley.com. We're buying Saw Valley tools pretty much soon, but that's another thing coming down the pipe. Finally, I'm actually gonna make a push on doing the store. So you can see this is also a Whisper on a Dremel, the battery powered Dremel. I can't remember what it is. And I love that long teardrop kind of, it's like a flame bit, but I'm not exactly sure what the name of that bit is. But that bit's great, and I love it. So what you can see now is I'm shaping out that little bit of a downward turn on the Raven's beak, kind of shaping out the little bits of feather directional changes to kind of give it a little bit of style, and that's the way I'm doing it. So now you can see switching into shaping out these feathers. Now I'm doing it with a Makita 4-inch angle grinder pad. I get the 4-inch discs with the rubber backing pad. I think it's a 5/8 screw in. I actually like the littler ones, but they're hard to find for the Makita angle grinder. So that's a 5/8 setting and a 40-inch grit. Now, for shaping these feathers, you gotta remember I'm at a show with Uncle Kevin, and I'm trying to get this done as fast as I can. So if I wanted to really make those look good, I would use a finger sander or a cylinder saber-tooth burr to kind of shape those and set the depths better. But because there's people watching behind me and we're just trying to get this thing done, I'm using it just to shape it out. And then I know that when I burn the shit out of it, flap sand it, and then paint it, you know, it's not gonna be too noticeable. And what I'm gonna talk about at the end also is something I had never done, and I didn't do it on this, but we're gonna talk about something at the end, so stick with me and I'm gonna talk about it shortly. Ooh, I don't talk this much, I need a little coffee. Yeah, this is just real time, baby. Screw it, no editing. It is what it is. So I clean out the side of this because, you know, you want your piece to look good. You can expose the sapwood a little bit, and then once you stain it, it'll look cool. And that's what I'm doing right now. And that's pretty much, you know, getting that done. Then you're gonna do a light burn on it, and then it gives it like a little bit of texture, a little bit of contrast, and it looks good. I think that's a good way to clean those up fast. You know, like if you're really doing a high-end job and you want to make it look really good, go for it. You know, I think the best way to do that is to use your flap sander and not your flap sander, your polisher. You can do your polisher and stuff. All right, so now we're burning it. We're pretty much done. You know, there's not much more to it. We've gone through our power tools. It's a quick carve. We're getting it done. We're gonna burn away a bunch of stuff. So when you're burning all this stuff away, it's basically, sorry, I'm ripping up the paper. Boom, big torch. I find that just gets everything the way you're gonna do it. Plus, you know, in reality, it's going black, so don't worry too much about it. Then I'm gonna re-burn a bunch of stuff that I think didn't get it. We're gonna hit it with the paint, black paint, and you know, any black paint. I use a flat. I don't like to use gloss. I don't know, it's just not for me. And then why I burn this, everybody always asks why I burn this. It's because when you're at a show and you want the paint to dry real quick, that's the best way to do it that I've found. I mean, if you got a better way to do it, awesome. Using the air to blow out all the wood chips that are kind of burnt but that are hidden. You know, you can see like how it just exposed a bunch of stuff. That's so I can redo it and reburn it and then make sure I get everything finished the way I want it. But when you're trying to burn and get it done fast, that to me has always been the best way, is take the paint and do it. So we skipped through some stuff because it was boring. So I sanded out the back because I thought if it was super, super dark, the Raven is already black here, so it's not gonna pop. Obviously I didn't do it like super good, but just giving it that little sand out and look, you know, it changes the contrast. You now have light to dark or light to, you know, yeah, it changes the contrast. There's light in the back and there's dark in the front. Same with spirit faces. If you do a spirit face and it's light in the front, I make it dark in the back. That's the way I kind of like to do it. So I've got the 40 volt Makita drill, set it at like a 1/2 inch, and then I got basically the torque screws you get at Home Depot, Rona, and I'm gonna just jam that in because we're making a bar top. You put a bar top on anything, you're gonna start to make some more money. And very simple, take a slab, you wanna get that nice and flat. So that's the 620 with a 20-inch arbor bar. It might have been the 24-inch toonie, but oh, that's for the bottom part. So yeah, so that's flat too. But same thing for when you're doing your bar. Now, what I'm doing with this slab is I'm gonna run around the corners and just round it off, because you know, you gotta think, if people are gonna be sitting and standing by it, you don't want to get a sliver, you don't wanna bump the edge, or if you got a kid, you don't want them running into a sharp corner. I got the Makita Polisher, 7-inch polishing disc. It's hook and loop, and this has been one of the best things I've ever bought. I love that tool. Now the sanding paper, that's always been a pain in the ass, because here in Canada we have Crappy Tire, and they only sell these backing pads for this hook and loop with 3 different options. So I have found this one on Amazon. It's like way cheaper. There's a bunch of them. You gotta be careful. The brown discs suck, but you saw that this was like a gray one. I don't know the name, but it was the only option that I found. And you could buy like 40 of them for like 20 bucks or something like that. And honestly, they're really good. And I'm using an aggressive grit. I'm just doing it because honestly, cedar is a soft wood. I'm getting this done fast. People are gonna drink and hang out on it, and it doesn't have to be like super perfect. If you want it super perfect and that's your prerogative, then definitely, you know, go for it. Make it happen. Sand the crap out of it. I know what I'm selling this thing for, and for the price point and the time, it's all about getting this done quick and keeping the attention of the audience. I mean, I probably lost them, to be honest, but for me to take an hour and do this little piece, you know, I'm gonna sell it for probably 700 bucks, and you know, it'll hold the attention, but at that same time, for me to do an hour of time of my own time, I'm gonna bang it out and get her done. Time for a Carver shower. You know, I'm sure if you guys go home to your families and you have to clean up, you know, use the air. That's what I do. So we're pretty much done now. And, you know, for me, I don't fill in that hole. If you want to fill in the hole for the, for where that, you know, tabletop is, totally cool. You want to come from underneath, from behind, you do you. I'm just doing it fast. And if people want to take it apart when they're taking it home, because we're at a show, that's what I do. I make it so it's easy to take home and also functional. Okay, so this stain everybody's been asking me about. I'm gonna do a video on my new stains that I like, but this is Sherwin-Williams Log Home Finish stain with no pigment. The reason I use it for this type of wood is because this is a very blonde cedar. And by blonde, I mean it is like orangey. It's not the dark brown that you'll see in other videos. I love carving that chocolate brown wood, but it's not what I had on the day. So I'm just going over it with this stain. I really like it. I find that it lasts long, but when you go to Sherwin-Williams, they're gonna tell you, hey, do you want to put a pigment in it? We recommend that for the UV protection. No, thank you. I'd rather just tell the people you're gonna have to stain it one more time next year or in a couple years. That's what you gotta do. And here we go, boom. We're done, and I'm done. And I hope you guys like this. So if you do like this and you think this video was a good one, leave a message in the comments. And you know, thank you for watching. I'm just gonna rant even though it's over. My name's Ryan Cook. Obviously, thank you so much. Hopefully this helps. Just remember, give it everything you got, have fun, and do what works for you. Keep ripping it up. You!